Hello everyone, and this is still Data Winter Meetup. And next speaker is Tracy Powers, and she will tell her interesting story about data strategy. Tracy, floor is yours.
Great. Great. Thank you, Alexander. Greetings, everyone. I'm Tracy Powers, and today I'm here to share with you the value of the Data Strategy Articulation Map. I confess it's one of my favorite topics. As a brief introduction to me, my career spans 30 plus years in data management, data governance, and data strategy. My experience includes technology consulting, business transformation, and strategy definition. For our time together today, we will make the assumption that all businesses have a business strategy. It may not be formally written down, but directionally, there are goals that executives have agreed to accomplish within a specified time horizon. What we will cover today is a need for the mapping of data to that business strategy to succeed in today's world. We've all heard over and over data is the new, fill in the blank, was oil, now it's bacon. Not sure I agree with bacon. But anyway, yet many companies are merely gathering data and not monetizing it. How could that be when everything is spooling off reams of data? Just think your phone, your car, now even your refrigerator. Recent publications show that there's often a disconnect between data strategy and the business strategy. Personally, I love this quote that only 30% of organizations have aligned their data strategy to their business strategy. This would clearly indicate a misalignment of business goals and the ability to meet those goals using data. What is much published today is the lack of value, either real or perceived, from a data strategy. This also indicates that a data strategy exists, but there's no mapping to the realization of business value and potentially a lack of adoption. Lastly, let's talk about change. Everyone is inherently resistant to change. We all know that quote, but why? When executing a data strategy, there are often new skills needed, which can bring an element of fear of the unknown. There is the fear of what will I need to know? How will I find more time in my day to learn new things? Does my staff have the skills to do new things? How do I upskill them while still retaining them? Where will I get budget for more stuff? Throughout the presentation, we will discuss the difference in our approach and how we address each of these three topics from a people perspective. Our approach includes data strategy, data literacy, and data governance paired with communication and organizational adoption. The results will not only assuage fears of the unknown, but create demand for transformation to a data-driven culture. Before we go further, let's anchor on our definition of a data strategy because it may be different than yours. In the diagram, you will see how a data strategy encompasses business goals, plus data management capabilities, plus analytical capabilities. It's the intersection of these three elements that define a successful data strategy. The process of a successful data strategy adoption begins with executive and stakeholder alignment and the shared vision definition. This is the first critical step of bringing the business stakeholders together with the technology stakeholders to discuss the needs of the business in business vocabulary, or we often refer to this as the North Star. Next, we move on to the assessment and roadmap to take inventory of what's working today and what can be leveraged in the future. The framework and operating model take into consideration how the future state will serve the needs of the business. An important component here is future scalability. Organizational capabilities drills deeply into what skills are necessary in the future state, what data literacy is needed, what skills are missing, which roles can be upskilled and leveraged. Lastly, the value and metrics enables the measure of value received from the data strategy. These metrics will change over time as increasing levels of maturity are realized, but they are critical indicators of data strategy adoption and the business value generated. Now that we're aligned on what a data strategy is and why you need one, well, now what? Before we go on, let's talk a little bit about why data strategies can fail to generate the expected value and outcomes. Let's review a couple of the pitfalls. First, lack of clear goals and objectives. A data strategy must have clear goals and objectives that are aligned with the business objectives. Without a clear understanding of the goals, it's difficult to create a strategy that's effective. Lack of buy-in from key stakeholders. A data strategy is only effective if it's supported by key stakeholders, including senior management and other decision makers. If there's a lack of buy-in or support, it can be difficult to implement the strategy effectively. Third, insufficient resources. A data strategy requires significant resources, including data scientists, technology, and infrastructure. If these resources are not sufficient, the strategy may fail to achieve its objectives. Inadequate communication. Communication is critical to the success of a data strategy. If the strategy is not communicated effectively to all stakeholders, including employees, customers, and partners, it can lead to confusion and resistance, that fear that we talked about a little bit earlier. Failure to adapt to changing circumstances. Data strategy must be flexible and adaptable to changing circumstances, including new technologies, market conditions, and customer needs. The strategy is rigid and inflexible, may become outdated and ineffective. Lastly, lack of focus on business outcomes. A data strategy must be focused on achieving specific business outcomes, such as increased revenue, improved customer satisfaction, or greater efficiency. If the strategy is too focused on technical or data-related objectives, it may not deliver the desired business outcomes. Enter the data strategy value chain. Many companies are adept at solving technology problems, and often they jump right in there without truly digging into the business use cases that will be the most impactful to the business strategy, and then pairing that with what technology capabilities are needed to satisfy those use cases. The new result can be that the technology may serve a specific problem, but may not solve all the problems. And a side detractor could be that business users could be alienated through a lack of partnership from the lack of being consulted and understanding their specific needs. Finally, it can still leave gaps that continue to get solved with Excel. When you drive a business strategy top down, simultaneously building technology capabilities bottom up, you are able to take information to insights. But this is driven by business engagement to bring the right technology solutions to bear. Sitting in the middle is the Data Strategy Articulation Map to tie the top-down business strategy to the future state realization of business value from the bottom-up technology capabilities. As we will discuss next, our methodology to create the Data Strategy Articulation Map also solves for the following potential failure points. Lack of clear goals and objectives, lack of buy-in from key stakeholders, insufficient resources, inadequate communication, and a lack of focus on business outcomes. Next, we'll talk a little bit about our approach. The approach to create the Data Strategy Articulation Map blends 4 unique phases to create the resultant map. In each engagement, some of the components you see here may already exist, but this shows the overall framework and pieces needed to complete the map. Note that each pillar has a defined outcome that translates to a component on the Data Strategy Articulation Map. The key activities are engaging with business stakeholders. I keep saying that over and over. This is done through workshops, branding exercises, and listening sessions. The goals of these activities is to really listen to what opportunities may exist that have not yet been capitalized on. These engagement activities create the use cases for the future state. Now, one thing I want folks to be aware of is there can be a separate activity to define a prioritization matrix that can be used for use case execution at a later stage. The approach and methodology translates into a journey map. The journey is to produce, this diagram shows that the interwoven components that create the articulation phase of the data strategy over the journey. As I mentioned in the beginning, the first step of the data strategy is stakeholder alignment through workshops and interactive sessions. This helps to gather pain points and opportunities and use cases that can be prioritized. But how do we get the stakeholders to speak the same language? How do we get everyone to understand the classic, what's in it for me? The journey you see here enables stakeholders to communicate openly, to select words and phrases that resonate with them, but also encourages them to think differently. The colors of the steps in the journey indicate the purpose of each step. For example, step 2, what are the key drivers for change? For example, the technology in use today may have end-of-life issues. This creates an opportunity to look at re-platforming and rethinking the future state. How does this work meet the strategic needs of the business? Does that increase revenue? Create faster time to market? What are some of those key drivers for change in your organization? Think about that for a second. As you move through the journey, the components in each prior step get leveraged in the next. Key drivers for change, for example, ties directly into the current state assessment for the articulation of pain points currently being experienced. This step can gain alignment between the technology team and the business to agree collectively that a path forward is needed. As you continue to move through the journey, the strategy gets defined. There will be a heavy draw on the use cases from the business that satisfy their strategic goals. As the data strategy begins to take shape, it's time to start weaving in those words, feelings, and phrases that will resonate with stakeholders across the organization. This starts with a branding exercise, which many think is really fun. What do you want users to think and feel when they think of the future state? What will work be like after the data strategy is executed? A key part of dialing in the communication is testing. Do you have a group, maybe your existing reporting group, data governance council, some such group that you could test messages with? And during that testing, does the group understand conceptually the intent when you share those phrases with them? Does it resonate? Is it something they would feel comfortable saying every day in their work? As you continue to work your way through the journey, you are creating messages, crafting outcomes, and defining results that will be shared through a communication playbook. This playbook will include items such as an executive walking deck that compiles a succinct set of messages that can be used in meetings and communications to deliver the messages that will not only be heard, but acted on. Let's take a deeper look at the branding exercise. Each company has its own culture, their unique terminology, and style. In order to capture those elements in a common language, the branding exercise is done. Through this effort, words are captured that define the essence of the future state in a way that is comfortable for executives to use daily, but is understood by all people across the organization. It invites thinking differently. How will you think, feel, or act differently tomorrow that you're not doing today based on our data strategy? This exercise finds the sweet spot in language that allows you to bring people along in the data strategy adoption journey. It gets people collaboratively talking beyond the technology capabilities conversations. Some questions we ask during these sessions could include, when you hear data informed, what does that look like for you? How do you want people to feel about the data strategy? What words need to be used that are commonly understood? What are the pain points that will be resolved in the future state? For one note on this slide for additional explanation, the top part of the slide shows some of the key words and phrases that will create the strategic priorities. The bottom part of the slide defines how the messages of the data strategy will be crafted. For example, in our communications, they will be playful and fun, but not insulting or childish. The next level of alignment is defining the mission and vision. One example of a mission statement from target retailers: we fulfill the needs and fuel the potential of our clients. Their vision: guided commitments to great value, the community, diversity, and the environment. When I hear those statements, I do picture the Target brand, and that is how I personally feel about their Target brand. Let's look at a couple other examples. Our vision is to become a data-driven organization that uses advanced analytics, AI, and machine learning to uncover insights, enhance our customer experience, and deliver value to our stakeholders. The mission is to foster a data-driven culture that encourages collaboration, innovation, and continuous learning, and empowers our teams to make informed decisions based on real-time data. What do some of these messages look like for your company and your organization? By focusing on the branding exercise, the definition of the mission and vision are woven using words that resonate. If we go back to our top-down, bottom-up approach, the vision is where we are going, and the mission is why we are here, and the strategic priorities are measurements of the bottom-up capabilities that are realized in business value terms. The statements crafted here will bring in those communication elements. Our communication and messages will be inspiring, for example. Also of note, on the right-hand side, you will see the strategic priorities are not technical in nature, but articulate the needs of the business that will be satisfied by the data strategy. For example, the future state capability that will be realized is, as a business person, I can spend less time looking for data I want to answer a question or make a decision. Wow, that's impactful, because now I can spend my time doing more value-added work items. Now, let's tie it all together and see what this builds into. Here you see the actual data strategy articulation map. And hopefully you have seen from the methodology and the journey described how these pieces fit together into a succinct, concise one-pager that says exactly where we are going and the what's in it for me. My time will be optimized through the provision of clean data, through a one-stop shop, for example. I will realize efficiencies from automation. I can use predictive models for decision making. I know where to invest in employees for retention. I can share my knowledge and learn from others. Knowledge is power, share it. But do be careful here. A classic mistake is to list technology products, tools, or applications. This area is about the business value realized through the technology capabilities, never leading with just a technology tool. Here we are leading with framing in a way that resonates with leadership to show up differently. Your data strategy may be asking leadership to show up as data literate, govern things that they don't govern today, implement new processes. How about engage in defining skills matrices and training plans for employee upskilling and retention, but also to address the fear of what lies ahead. All of these aspects are directly addressing people challenges while still providing an actionable roadmap for technology execution. Finally, To ensure continuous improvement, there are success metrics. These can morph over time, as we said, as the organization matures, but they must be identified and captured upfront. The metrics are directly in line with the measuring of the future state outcomes and tied directly to business strategy goals. You can see some examples here that are measurable and trackable over time to show both maturity and improvement. Finally, a roadmap. This roadmap is an extremely high-level example, but it's for use in a communication plan for leadership. The primary point of a roadmap like this is to illustrate dependencies and phases of maturity. The coupling of the data strategy articulation map and the roadmap are the foundations for your communication playbook. Note that the adoption swim lane is completely about executing the communication playbook created during the journey. Now, you will communicate what you are going to do, why you are doing it, and what business value will be received, all in terminology that everyone understands and can clearly hear the "what's in it for me." You are now set to realize the value from your data strategy through the use of the Data Strategy Articulation Map. Now I'd like to pause here and ask a couple questions.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. Very, very interesting talk. Yeah, so we have questions from our audience. First is there any case study of a data strategy construction that could be useful as a good example or template?
Yes, we do have case studies.
And yeah, so it's available in EPAM, so it's not
Correct. Yes. Yes,
public
we do
one.
have case studies that are available within EPAM. This,
Mhm.
this methodology and approach has been leveraged many times across multiple clients here at EPAM. So we're happy to discuss additional use cases and value propositions and how we've done this at clients.
Yeah, and I have a question regarding data strategy and how to be sure that we are moving in a proper direction and follow selected data strategy. So, are there any verification stage
Verification and stage.
if it's a proper question?
I'm not sure I really understand the question, but what happens in the execution phase of the data
Mhm.
strategy, as we said, is the communication, and that communication will continually evolve over time. So with the metrics and the measurements, you would be consistently testing iterative value that you're receiving from the business through that communication and feedback loop that would be created through that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and also, who can be an expert to set a proper data strategy? If so, you told that it's not stakeholders. So, are they some data architects, or so who can it be?
Who can be an expert to set proper data strategy if not stakeholders, data architects? Okay, sure. When you are creating a data strategy and you're defining the technology capabilities that need to be implemented, you would have a data architect involved in the team. This exercise here for the data strategy articulation map is to really gain alignment on what is needed from those technology platforms, whether it be one ubiquitous data pipeline, for example, that everybody can ride on. Things like that would come in to play when you're talking about the execution phase of the technology capabilities and the needed platforms. You would certainly have a data architect in there, most likely in some of the earlier phases, to understand the data movement that would be needed to satisfy the use cases that are defined by the business.
Mhm. Yeah, and maybe you can share some books or blogs where our audience can read more about data strategy itself, or uh, yeah, can learn this topic.
Oh, Yes, I'd love to share the slides after this. And, let me look for a few resources. I would be happy to share. I know Gartner has published a lot of articles around data strategy. I don't know that I've really seen anything in particular around the data strategy articulation map. There may be something about it just to reinforce that the value of the data strategy articulation map is really coupling all of those factors together, which is communication, its stakeholder alignment, its mission and vision, all to make sure that you're getting everybody in alignment, singing together, right? Holding hands and saying, oh my gosh, this is the right path. This is what we have to do. This is what we need. I know where I need to plan to upskill my team in order to start using the new technology capabilities and things like that. So the articulation map really includes a lot of the communication, the branding, and then the facilitation and executive stakeholder guidance to get to those messages that will resonate. Then the future state will begin from a technology and capability execution perspective. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much, Tracy. Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting talk. Yeah, we will share the presentation together with the material that you will provide. So thank you very much, audience, for coming today to our conference. Thank you all who stay with us all the day. Yeah, tomorrow we have a second day of our data winter meetup. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you,
Yeah, see you
everyone, and a
tomorrow.
big thank you to my partners who helped me create this presentation. Thank you all.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.